Earlier on Tuesday, Ohio State is still number one. Some thought maybe LSU could potentially jump them. No, they did not. LSU is 2. Clemson still cruising along undefeated as well, sitting at 3. And Georgia still there after their win against Georgia Tech at number 4. Now, you knew Alabama would no longer be number 5, so who is? It is Utah. The Utes are sitting there without one loss, heading into Friday's Pac-12 title game against Oregon. The Utes are 5. Bama went all the way from 5 to 12 after losing the Iron Bowl. Oklahoma now sits at 6. You wonder where Baylor is if you don't see him on that screen, which you don't. The Bears come in at 7. Remember, Oklahoma and Baylor play in the Big 12 title game on Saturday. And with that, we dive into SEC.
It's getting interesting.
Dari, Jordan, Deej, Damian Fishback going to join us as well. Plenty of basketball to get to as well. So, any issue with Ohio State still being 1 after thumping Michigan and LSU number 2? Kind of made sense to me.
No, I don't think so. No. Yeah, I think LSU will have a chance to make a big statement against Georgia. Then it could flip-flop again, but I'm good with Ohio State where it is.
I am too. I think Ohio State, last week they talked about them still being a complete team. They still showed that versus Michigan, so no problem with them being number 1.
I mean, I'm going to ask Herbie this in a little bit. Kirk Herbstreit will join us. But let's say LSU wins and Ohio State wins, and they're both in, 7 to 10, 14-point wins. Who should be number 1? Who would you put number 1 at that point? LSU over Georgia and Ohio State over Wisconsin.
I think LSU still, I think they would jump to be number 1 for me, simply because of the wins that they had, how they looked. And I think last week a lot of the talk about LSU was their defense. And you look about what they did against Texas A&M, crushed Texas A&M in that ballgame. Defense played really well. I think they jump over Ohio State in that position because they have a big win versus the number 4 team in a big-time championship game, and they've done it all year.
I might disagree only because I think the reason LSU is because of their defense. And even if they shut out Georgia, maybe not shut out, but hold them to 10 points, 14 points, everyone's going to look at Georgia and go, well, they're not a great offense anyway. They haven't scored more than 27 points in any SEC game. So,
Still the number 4 team.
We'll get into that, too. We're going to go into little X's and O's, what to expect when each team has the ball. We will dive into that game, of course, on Saturday. Right now, though, want to bring in Seth Walder, of course, part of ESPN's analytics team, been diving into the college football playoff over the course of its releases this season. So right now it is Ohio State 1, LSU 2, but what do your metrics, what do the analytics, Seth, tell you will happen if both the Buckeyes and Tigers win as expected on Saturday? Who on Sunday would sit at 1?
In that scenario, we do think that LSU would make the jump and move to number 1. It's not certain, but that's the more likely scenario. It's just all about the resume. The committee tends to lean on what you've accomplished rather than the quality of the team. There's a big gap between what LSU has done and what Ohio State has done, even though they're both 12-0. Their strength of record, it's about 3 times harder to be 12-0 right now with LSU's schedule than it is with Ohio State's. So because of that and because they would add the win against Georgia, we think LSU would move to number 1 there.
The perception, not necessarily in Vegas or perhaps with FPI, I realize, is that Georgia is a significant underdog against LSU. Again, that's what most people think. Forget the numbers. What do your metrics tell you is the shot that Georgia legitimately has to beat LSU?
Very legitimate chance. There's a very good shot of an upset, 44% chance that Georgia could pull this off and beat LSU. Look, LSU has the unquestioned offensive advantage in this game, but the difference we think that compared to most people is that Georgia's defensive advantage is almost as strong. And so when you consider that and the fact that the game would be played in Atlanta, we think Georgia does have a decent shot to pull off the upset and get into the playoff.
All right, so let's say that happens. Let's say Georgia wins. Worst case scenario here now for LSU fans. How bad would it need to be? What would have to happen, Seth, for LSU to somehow miss the playoff?
Tigers fans, I think you can really just sit back and enjoy this game on Saturday. There is no scenario where we think that LSU would be likely to be out of the playoff. I'm never going to say 100% they're in because in the world of statistics, it's hard to say with anything that's 100% certainty. But really, even the worst scenario, LSU is going to be in the playoff.
Yes, and they should be comfortable with that. So we'll see how it all shakes out. Cannot wait for the weekend. Seth, good stuff, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's assume now chalk holes. Let's assume I don't need this anymore because I don't. Let's assume LSU takes care of Georgia. All right, no offense, Dogs fans. That opens up that number 4 spot. Now the great debate. It has nothing to do with this league unless you want to worry about who LSU might play if they end up number 1. Who should be number 4 then out of these 3? Let's assume chalk holds and OU beats Baylor, Utah beats Oregon. Where are you going then?
I'm going with Utah, man. I know a lot of the stuff up here. You look at some of the game control for OU says, hey, they're sitting here at 7th, but for me, Utah looks like a team that's in the college football playoff already with how they play. You're talking about playing really stout defense, a quarterback who is second right now in the country in completion percentage behind only Joe Burrow. They run the football really well. This is a team right now I think is designed to be in the college football playoff. And I know OU has played seemingly well at times, but I just can't get over them having to come back from Baylor down 25. It just doesn't look like the team that I think Utah has been dominant for majority of the year.
And that's the thing. I mean, these rankings, we say start over every week, right? But I mean, the committee has said Utah has been a better team than Oklahoma all season. Unequivocally, they've been the better team. So I think Utah, as long as they win, they're the better football team. Oklahoma, what would they have to do? Oklahoma would have to shut out Baylor. They would have to have an unbelievable defensive performance, because that's what's holding the committee back right now to saying this is a playoff team. They don't think they're complete. Defense started well the first part of the season. They haven't played well the second part.
Here's the other part that I wonder, too, is when Utah plays Oregon, does it matter how they beat Oregon if they beat Oregon? If it's
I
a
think
close
it
game,
does, man. Like, listen, I'm not going to sit here. People know I'm a Sooner, right? But I'm not
for the committee's sake.
I'm not stumping for them. I don't believe that's a playoff team. But I will say this. Why do they have to shut Baylor out? Why can't they just beat Baylor? Can I write on this for a second?
Absolutely.
Looking at Baylor's ranking, Utah's playing a team that sits at 14. Why is that not good enough to get Oklahoma in?
Because
the committee thinks Baylor is that much better than Oregon.
No, I think it's that that the committee thinks Utah is that much better and complete than Oklahoma.
Right, but they like resume, right? So would OU not boost theirs more than Utah would boost theirs?
Yes, they would boost theirs, but look at these. I mean, these are all clumped in the same category, per se. And one's not 25 or 30
I got you.
and the other top 10. I think they're so close, it's going to come down to the eye test. I really think it will. So the manner in which they win. Now, I will say this. Baylor's got a chance to say that loss doesn't mean anything. They got a chance to avenge that loss.
They do.
If they do it in a dominant fashion, then it might get interesting depending on how Utah.
And Dar, we got to mention, they've had them in front of them all year long.
I know.
So that means something.
Absolutely has. They absolutely have. But they'll flip-flop. And they might show us that Sunday with LSU and Ohio State.
Little finger painting here.
I love it. All right, look.
Can I add? No.
That only matters if LSU beats Georgia.
Right.
Speaking of LSU and Georgia.
All I do is work. All I do is get paid, yeah. All I do is work. All I do is work. All I do is work. All I do is let me work.
Look out. He never saw the corner blitz coming. Batted down at the 10. Down and blown up in the backfield. This is going to be a big one. LSU looks unstoppable.
You're not going to get this anywhere else.
The whole nation's going to be watching.
The LSU Tigers going to war. 1, 2, 3.
60 minutes of hell. That's the way we like it.
Obviously, all kinds of implications on this one Saturday in Atlanta. LSU, Georgia. Winner knows it's playoff bound, and frankly, LSU is probably playoff bound either way. It would be, in the opinion of most. But how about a conference title to boot? LSU hasn't won it since 2011. Dogs, of course, won it just 2 seasons ago. As for this particular game, it's all about opportunity.
This will be as great a challenge as we've had. I know since I've been here as far as playing an opponent, and our players have earned this opportunity. We didn't back our way into this game. We earned our way into this game. And we're looking forward to the opportunity to play in what is probably one of the greatest stages, I've said it over and over, in all of college football.
This is their 3rd time here in a row, and they're gonna be hungry. They well coached. We beat them last year, so they got a little chip on their shoulder, you know what I'm saying? And we got to let last year go. Last year is different. We played them at home. Now we play them over there. It's a whole different team, a whole different circumstance. I think we have an excellent coaching staff that people can throw whatever they want after us. We're going to have answers, and we have players that can do it. But again, it's going to come down to blocking and tackling and take care of the ball.
Yeah, what a matchup it's going to be, right? I mean, these aren't just conference rankings, folks. These are national rankings. LSU's offense, Georgia's defense among the best of the best across the nation. You can see how effective LSU is offensively and Georgia is defensively. Let's get into the LSU offense part of this thing here. We hear all about Burrow and Chase and Jefferson.
They're pretty good.
You want Terrace Marshall, throw him in too, right? But how about that running back who's become so effective running and receiving? Clyde Edwards-Helaire, what's the key for him?
Yeah,
How big is he?
I think he's an X factor for this